What's up? My name is Jaden Walker. I'm one of the presidential candidates for today, and I'm going against.
My name's Zoe Julian. I'm another presidential candidate, and I'm going against Jaden Walker.
So I'm going to be asking you a question about healthcare. Given the worrisome rise of the mental disturbances within the younger generation of Americans over at least the decade, what would you what would you now do to improve mental health for our citizens?
What I could do for improving mental health for the citizens, we can bring more awareness to it. I don't think there's not much awareness to it right now. People sweep it underneath the carpet, and that's the only reason the problem keeps going. I mean, people don't talk about it. People don't reach out for help. So we'll bring more awareness to it. Put more. Trying to say how to think. Put more. Got to put more assets into it. See what I'm saying? Yeah, that'd be my best option.
So Zoe, same question about healthcare. Given the worrisome rise of disturbances within the younger generation of Americans over at least the last decade, what would you now do to improve the mental health of our citizens?
So to improve the mental health of everybody, not just our younger generation, I would definitely do more campaigning, like just making it more uh, just achievable. Like it's not like a weird thing. Like mental health is not weird. Everybody should be able to talk to a therapist without feeling weird. And I will also make it accessible because a lot of people they don't get help with their mental health because they can't afford it. So I'll make it affordable for everybody.
So it says the 30-second, the closing statement. They just go again on the same question, or so Jaden went, Zoe went. Yes. Jaden has 30 seconds. Okay. 30 seconds. Same Zoe question. Has 30 seconds. Okay. Okay.
Same question.
Yeah.
My closing statement for that, as I said, we'll put more assets into it. We'll make it more okay to talk about, right? We'll bring more awareness to it. To add more, like I said, more assets. We'll make it easier to set or to access, right? And trying to think what else. Make it more easy for people to get or afford. Like I say.
And Zoe, the closing statement.
So my closing statement is basically the same thing, just to make it not so stigmatized that it's not a negative thing to get your mental health checked out, and just to make it more accessible for everybody, the upper class, middle class, and lower class, because everybody experiences mental health problem. And yeah, just make it accessible, make it known as something that everybody has. It's not a negative thing to have.
The second question about healthcare. As president, what would you do to increase mental health treatment within the community of our vets and their families and caregivers?
Okay. For our veteran community, I would say bring more bring more people who experience the same thing. A few years back, around 2013, around that, a veteran, Chris Kyle, he'll do that. He'll go to veteran homes, help them out, go take them out, talk about it, whatever they've gone through, whatever they saw. Um, Help them out with any problems they got, physical problems, mental problems. Bring more stuff like that around. Be able to help these veterans get through whatever they're thinking.
And Zoe, your second question as president, what would you do to increase mental health treatment within the community for our vets and their families and caregivers?
So to increase mental health, just make it more positive for our vets, I would definitely just give them like access to ways that they can talk about what they experience, because holding that in is like it makes things worse. Um, just like PTSD reformance, so that they can learn to get over that and work with it. Um, uh, Activities they can work with their friends, like hang out with their friends. Um, just to get over the war stuff, and just have like maybe younger volunteers from schools like just go hang out with them for a day, or yeah.
And your closing statement.
My closing statement will piggyback off what I said before. Be able to let these vets be able to talk about it with people who went through the same thing as them, right? Because sometimes if you try to explain it to somebody who doesn't know about it, sometimes it won't translate as well, and you just look even worse than you already did before. So bring more people who went through the same thing, be able to talk it out, get them through it.
And for you, Zoe, your closing statement?
Yeah, so I would just the same thing, just allow them to have access to people who will listen to them, who will listen to their stories and let them feel heard. I'll also make it accessible as well, because some veterans, though they have benefits, they don't have access to a lot of stuff. So I'll just make it accessible and just easier for them to manage.
I'm gonna ask you a question about gun control. As president, how would you ensure that Americans keep their right to bear arms under the Second Amendment while also ensuring that gun violence drops?
Okay, so we got to keep, yes. So I do agree, we do have to keep it within our Second Amendment. That's the right to everybody here in the U.S. We will take precautions by tuning up the age from 18 plus to 21 plus. We'll have more precautions with evaluations, right? Every 4 years, we'll sit down, talk to somebody, trying to purchase a weapon, and checking how they're doing mentally, checking what they're doing, like their background check and all that. We could also make it like a fee. You know what I'm saying? We could have like 150, said every 4 years, $150 for to take the eval, take a new test and all, like recertify yourself with the weapon, and that's how we'll be able to keep it straight. Call.
Okay, and for you, Zoe, this question is about gun control. So, as president, how would you ensure that Americans keep their right to bear arms under the Second Amendment, while also ensuring that gun violence drops?
So I would still allow them to have access to guns only for their own protection. They'll go through, before they even have access to guns, they'll have to go through mental evaluations to make sure they are mentally stable to have a weapon like that in their possession. And then also the process to gain the gun, they'll have to go through a lot of lessons, like gun safety lessons, how to like just how to properly work it, so they're not like just being unsafe with it, and just basic protections, and yeah.
And for your closing statement?
Close the statement, piggybacking off of what I said before. Have more precautions with it. Don't don't make it a scary thing to have guns. This is America. We right to bear arms is in our thing, in our blood for real. So we just gotta make it more noticeable.
Any closing statement for you, Zoe?
Yeah, so basically just making sure they're very safe, their mental health is stable, and they're safe with their guns. They know what they're doing. They're not just doing random stuff, going about waving a gun around.
to bring up border security. Oh wait, sorry, wrong one. My bad. Okay, this is the second question. With the unfortunate rise of gun violence in institutions such as public schools, what would your plan be to combat gun violence within schools?
Then schools, combating that. We can security for sure. Being able to secure our schools, secure the young people in our nation. All right, make sure they'll be able to have a place where it's here for them to learn. That's it. We're teaching them how to be the new adults. That's it. So if they can't even feel safe in places like that, we definitely got to fix that. So make the places more secure. Um, yeah, but that's good.
Okay, and for you, Zoe, the second question about gun control. With the unfortunate rise of gun violence in institutions such as public schools, what would your plan be to combat gun violence within schools?
So I'll definitely do more security measures. I know a lot of students might not like it, but there would probably be metal detectors in front of the school just to prevent anybody from walking into the school with something like that. And then just keeping our doors locked, enforcing security, and also just doing drills constantly, like once a month, like how we usually do it, just to help them stay prepared and be in the know of like if something like that does happen, they know what to do. They don't just freak out and panic.
And your closing statement?
My closing statement for that would be, like I said, up in security, up in. I'll piggyback off what my opponent said, making sure there's procedures to where the kids know what to do in situations like that. Um, to make sure that they don't just fall out and just go into panic when something like that happens. I know it's a scary moment, but we got to prepare ourselves in this type of world we live in, and we got to prepare ourselves for stuff like that, even the worst. Prepare or never mind.
Closing statement for you, Zoe?
Um, just be saying the same thing, just enforcing our security, making sure our doors stay locked, metal detectors, ramping up the amount of officers we have, and then just keeping the students prepared for something like that to happen because unfortunately it's inevitable with a majority of the schools out here, and just making sure our students are safe and prepared.
Now for the security question. As president, how would you engage with Mexico and other countries to reform, create, and implement corroborative immigration policies?
Okay. How we will interact with other countries around us, we can, it's called, make it, let's not make it seem like a hell. Can I say that? My bad. Can I say that though? Make it seem like a hell not to make it seem like a hell to try to come over here when they're trying to make their lives better. See what I'm saying? And make sure we just gotta make sure that we're allowing, I don't know how to say this. Yeah, I'm gonna just keep it at what I said before. Evan. Should call him again.
And for you, Zoe, this question is about border security. So, as president, how will you engage with Mexico and other countries to reform, create, and implement cooperative immigration policies?
So I would definitely just make them know that we're not the enemy, that we're a friend, and just stay like keeping not like keep in touch, but like keep in touch so that they're not thinking like we're just a distant cousin or something. Just staying friendly, um, just constant letting them know what's going on and just keeping everything equal and friendly instead of just disagreeing on everything because you can always maybe agree to disagree or work together to compromise in the middle because in the end it's not about us, it's about the whole entire world, all of the people on our earth.
Your closing statement?
My closing statement would be to make sure it seems make it more appealing. Feel me? That's the whole point we were doing to have more to make immigration a better process instead of uh like more like a stricter. Just make it seem like make the whole topic try to make it seem more appealing for more people to come in to be able to build their lives up. Like our opponent said, it's not about just the government itself; it's about the people too.
And closing statement for you, Zoe?
Yeah, so just basically like just keeping it friendly, not letting everybody be our enemy because we're not each other enemy, we're family, and just making it not such a scary process, like he said. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. The second question will be, do you believe that increasing border security is the most effective way to combat drug trafficking, or should the U.S. focus more on international partnerships and demand strategies for reducing illegal immigration?
You read the question one more time.
Can I read the question one more time? Do you believe that increasing border security is the most effective way to combat drug trafficking, or should the U.S. focus more on international partnerships and demand strategies on reducing illegal immigration?
I say both ways have their positives and their negatives. If we just up our security, that'll just make just the citizens just trying to come in just to make their lives better. That'll make it even worse for them, right? If we just up security, but then also trying to find ways or try to find help without out of ourselves, um, that can lead to a lot, and that could lead to good things and bad things at the same time. So that's a tricky one. I'm gonna leave it right there. Leave it right there.
And for you, Zoe, do you believe that increasing border security is the most effective way to combat drug trafficking? Or should the U.S. force more on international partnerships and demand strategies on reducing illegal immigration?
So yeah, I don't think increasing border security is the best way. I think increasing partnership with our global friends is the best way to prevent drug trafficking and things like that, because we can always work together, because there's not just one side to the border, there's two sides to the border, so we can work together to prevent people from trafficking drugs and stuff like that. So yeah.
And your closing statement?
Um, Closing statement for that would be we got to find workaround. That's the main thing. Got to find a proper workaround for this. Can't make it seem like a hassle to want to make your life better. That can't be something we do. See what I'm saying? We're the land of the free, so we got to uphold that for sure.
Closing statement for you?
Yeah, so just making sure we're working together with everybody around us to keep our borders safe and just not make it so hard for everybody to get in, because people genuinely are trying to get in to make their lives better, like he said, and just working together as a community to prevent drugs from getting into each country.
Now that we talked about climate and the environment, how will you ensure that all communities receive equal access to clean air and water, as well as a credible response to the climate disasters such as wildfires and hurricanes?
To start off with the second part of your question, wildfires. Most of the time, they are a natural thing that's naturally occurring within nature, but we can make sure we can make more precautions to handle them instead of making them get out of control, harming people, get in the way of life. See what I'm saying? And then the first part of your question was how can we help all communities, right? Make sure they have clean air. Crack down. Got to go green. We got to help go green with our environment. We can't have half our nation living nice and then the other half of the nation can't even get clean air. See what I'm saying? So definitely have to help go green within around the even the I'm not gonna say lesser, but the less impoverished, I mean, communities in the nation. It's got to help go green around those two.
For you, Zoe, climate and environment, how will you ensure that all communities receive equal access to clean air and water, as well as equitable response to climate disasters such as wildfires or hurricanes?
So yeah, I would definitely make the processes to how we get clean water a lot more efficient because there are a lot of areas in our country that don't get clean water, like Flint, for example. They get dirty water, which is not healthy. Um, so just try to make sure like everywhere around us, they're getting clean water, they're getting clean air, just reducing pollution, reducing our carbon emission production, because that's very bad. And then also just keeping our waste to a minimum, putting trash cans all around the cities and all that, um, making people take accountability to throw their trash away and not just litter because that makes the environment worse. And then with like natural disasters like the fires and hurricanes and all that, just taking precautions to prepare for things like that and just having the citizens be ready for anything because anything can happen anywhere.
Your closing statement?
Closed statement would be we got to help ourselves go green. We have to minimize all, let's say, do our part in help minimizing anything harmful to the environment and to our nation. Okay. And then we could also join international programs to help anything going on, like trying to minimize said harms to our nation and to the planet.
Closing statement for you, sir?
Yeah, so just making sure the people are being held accountable, making sure that they're keeping our environment safe and clean, making sure how we clean our air and how we clean our water is good, um, and just having the citizens stay aware and awake for anything that can happen.
The second question would be, what steps will you take to ensure we collectively reduce our carbon emissions? Do you have an emissions reduction target or timeline?
Wait, one more time. My bad. One more time.
What steps will you take to ensure we collectively reduce our carbon emissions? Do you have an emissions reduction target or timeline?
Okay. I'm gonna say this. Do I currently have a mission trying to help those what was the word you said? Just the word. Emissions you said, right? The harmful emissions? Do I have a target mission for that? We are looking for one. We'll look into one. We'll help our environment any way we can, possible, the fastest way possible too. And check. Second part of your question, I'm trying to think about that. What was it? I can't think of it right now, so I'll leave it right there.
And for you, Zoe, what steps will you take to ensure we collectively reduce our carbon emissions? Do you have a emissions reduction target or timeline?
Steps I would take for carbon emission, I would definitely lower the amount of private jets we have flying around America because that's a major production of carbon in our atmosphere. So just making sure like people are not choosing to fly private jets and choosing to fly like if they have to fly, choosing safer, more environmentally friendly flying options because private jets release a lot of carbon.
And for your closing statement?
Closing statement. To piggyback off what my opponent said, we can find better ways to what's it called? Have transportation make transportation more greener to help the environment and be able to cut down. I don't know. Leave right there.
Closing statement for you.
Just making sure that our transportation is eco-friendly and that it's not producing a negative effect on our atmosphere, because it low-key already is. But we just got to find a way to work together and fix that.
Combating drugs and crime. As president, how will you support and advocate for families impacted by drug addiction?
Okay, to help the families impacted by drug addiction, we'll have to look in all walks of life for that, because anybody can get impacted by that. There are ways to we'll help make rehab more accessible. Make it not. We got to make a lot of things more and more appealing to people, because most of the time, most of the things we have, most people don't think it's appealing. They think it's a scary thing. So if we make more of our ways to help the people, make it more appealing, then more people will be able to want to go out and get that help for themselves and their families. That's the best way I could put it.
And for you, Zoe, on combating drugs and crime, as president, how will you support and advocate for families impacted by drug addiction?
So one way I really like what we used to do, we used to have DARE programs come into schools, and it would like low key scare students into like not wanting to do drugs. So I want to like bring that back, and then also like not make these harmful drugs so accessible, because it's so easy for people to get these drugs. They can just go to like a doctor, or they could go to a Walgreens, get something, put in the concoction, and then here you go, you got cocaine. So like just try to make that not so accessible for everybody. And yeah.
And your closing statement?
Closing statement would be make our reform programs more accessible, like I said, and we can crack down on making ingredients in some of these substances. Crack down on making sure they're not they're not out there like my opponent said. I'm gonna give her credit on that, but the main thing I want to do is just make sure our reform programs are more accessible and more appealing for the people to get that help.
And for you, Zoe, your closing statement.
Just making sure we bring back those programs that are teaching kids and making sure they know that drugs are not fun, they're not cool, they don't do anything good for you. All they do is bring negative things to you. Making sure we scare those kids, and then just also making it not so accessible for regular people to just get drugs.
You ready for your second question?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Since 1980, the U.S. prison population has grown by almost 800%. The United States has more people behind bars than any other country in the world. What would you do as president to reduce the U.S. prison population and end mass incarceration?
Okay, I'm trying to think. We got to take into consideration most of these imprisonments, and how you said some of them could be just false imprisonment. That could be one thing. We could have more look into more trials, right? Make sure every detail is clean. Make sure every detail is right position, instead of just throwing people straight in. Right, that could be one thing we could do. We can also trying to think. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna leave right there. I'm gonna leave right there.
Okay. And for you, Zoe, since 1980, the U.S. prison population has grown by almost 800%. The United States has more people behind bars than any other country in the world. What would you do as president to reduce the U.S. prison population and end mass incarceration?
So yeah, like he was saying, there's a lot of people in prison who are wrongfully incarcerated. There's also a lot of people who are put into prison that have mental health issue. So just finding better ways to just, because their mental health is what puts them in jail. So just giving them ways to like fix that, help them improve their mental health, and then also just making our prisons not so disgusting because they treat the prisoners like trash out there when most of them don't really deserve to be treated like the way they are. So just making them feel like actual people so that once they are reformed and once they get out of jail, they're able to like be prepared to go back into the new world and not want to go back to the negative lifestyle they live.
And your closing statement?
My closing statement would be, what's it called? To definitely look into, like I said, look into false imprisonments, make sure everything is good. And then what my opponent said about the mental health and all, you could definitely look into that. Make sure those people get the right help they need instead of throwing them in jail and getting them treated like a speck of dust. And then especially when they come back out, they don't have any of the right help to be able to transition back to the civilian world.
Closing statement for you?
So yeah, just basically what I was saying, just making sure we're not throwing people who don't need to be in prison, making sure we're keeping their mental health in check, making sure we're allowing them to be reformed and giving them like the proper activities and ways so that they can go back into society and be ready to do good and not go back to their negative lifestyles.
Foreign policy. Today, only 20% of the world's people live in free countries. What do you view as the United States' role in strengthening democracy and protecting human rights around the world?
Ooh. Around the world, we can try to set up little programs. Like we've done it in the past. We send out troops in different places to troops and politicians to help out with other political stances in some areas, some countries too. Another thing, sometimes I feel like we got to take care of ourselves to be able to help others around us too. So if we ever start bending or folding within our own community, our own system, we also have to hear that right away. And then after that, we can start helping the others around us in other communities, other countries. See what I'm saying?
Okay, for you, Zoe, on foreign policy, today only 20% of the world's people live in free countries. What do you view as the United States' role in strengthening democracy and protecting human rights around the world?
I definitely think that we should try to work together with the leaders of those countries, um, and try to get them to like compromise on a better way to treat their citizens. Like we don't have to like step in and go to war because that may do more harm than good. Just trying to work with their leaders, like North Korea, for example. That's a really negative dictatorship. We could try to work together with their leader. Um, to get them to compromise on better ways to treat their citizens. And then also, just like he said, like if we have something going on in our country, fix that first, handle that first, and then go and work with other countries.
My closing statement for that would be sometimes with dictatorships like North Korea, like my opponent brought up, sometimes that just travels down way too deep. So I feel like we have to help strengthen political political assets around countries around North Korea, making sure we're good within China, making sure we could help them first, and then we can help out South Korea, and then help out even more nations around it. Be able to treat their citizens fairly, treat their citizens with the dignity every human being deserves. Keep it right there.
Just like I said, just trying to work with those other leaders who are treating their people not so good, just trying to help them do better, working on ourselves as well. And yeah.
Conflicts regarding foreign interests with one another are growing more and more frequent, such as Russia, Ukraine, and Israel and Palestine. How much involvement, if any, should the U.S. have in these foreign conflicts? Should these foreign conflicts be a priority for America?
All honesty, we should. My first stance will be to keep it within ourselves. Make sure we're good first before anything else. But to our allies, like any other country we're allied with outside of us, we should definitely help, especially if it's with a bigger force compared to Ukraine and Russia. We definitely help out in certain situations like that. I say don't get involved too much and then cause a whole new world war, but we'll help out when needed or where it's needed.
And for you, Zoe, so conflicts regarding foreign interests with one another are growing more and more frequently, such as Russia, Ukraine, and Israel and Palestine. How much involvement, if any, should the U.S. have in these foreign conflicts? Should these foreign conflicts be a priority for America?
I think we should definitely watch how things go. If they get as negative as Palestine and Israel did, and Ukraine and Russia did, then we should step in because a lot of people died, a lot of people lost homes, lost a lot of family members. So just once it gets to that point, then that's when we really have to step in and save those refugees and just keep them from experiencing something so negative. Um, because when things like that happen, if we don't at least try to step in, those countries they won't exist anymore.
Your closing statement?
My closing statement would be we could for sure help out the refugees in these countries, right? But we can't play moderator to every battle. There's some battles, sometimes we got to pick and choose our own battles. We can't try to rush in and just try to save everybody. But best believe the refugees that are affected terribly in these circumstances can definitely find comfort within our nation.
So like I was saying earlier, just like see how things are going. If it gets to a point where like thousands of people are just dying left and right, then that's where we can like step in and try to save those citizens instead of leaving them to suffer when we know that we can help them out.
Um, for both of them or just for
For both of them, for Russell first.
any final thoughts?
Last things you want to say?
Last things I want to say. Um, Vote Jaden Walker. We'll make this good. We'll make this country good. We'll make sure we're strong within everything we do. Make sure everything bring peace back. Bring peace back. Be able to bring peace back within ourselves first before we do anything else. That's the main thing.
So I definitely, like you said, like we got to work on ourselves first before we try to do anything with other countries. Um, work on the rights that we're taking away from women, the rights that we're taking away from people of color, because we're going backwards, we're not going forward. So just try to bring those rights back and make everything equal for everybody. So yeah.